All right, welcome to this episode of Monetizing Your Mental Capital. I'm your host, Will Christensen. I know how to say my own name, and I'm super excited to have Pasha on the podcast. And Pasha, I'm not even going to pretend to pronounce your last name because I couldn't even pronounce mine. Could you pronounce that for us?
Yeah, Knish. Nice and
Ish.
simple.
Well, that's way easier. I should have gone for that. I think I could have. I think I could have nailed that. This episode is sponsored by SellerLabs, an amazing tool for Amazon sellers. Pasha, tell us, why would an Amazon seller who's looking to monetize their mental capital or upscale their Amazon business be interested in hearing from you?
Well, Will, I've been on Amazon since the early days, selling on Amazon for 13, 14 years now. I exited a seven-figure company in my early 20s. I have an agency with 15 people. We manage eight figures annually. And I mean, we're pretty much living and breathing Amazon. And to be honest, a lot of people are like, oh, do you do TikTok and Google? We don't really handle anything else except Amazon. So we're really focused on that. So yeah, we pretty much know and have our finger on the pulse of what's going on the Amazon side as much as possible. And we're a full service management agency. So yeah, I mean, if you're not going to listen to what I say, then I don't know how much further you'll get listening to other people. So
So what you're saying is you've been around this block before.
a couple times.
So, not just once, Will. I've been around the block multiple times. I love it. I love it. I'm going to include a question from our prior season. This new season is all about nuggets and helping people find those nuggets from these amazing service providers like you. These are pieces of monetized mental capital that you feel comfortable giving away to the audience in exchange for understanding that you're an expert, right? And so that's our goal here, is to find some of those monetizable mental nuggets and share them with the audience. And the first question I like to ask when I'm on this other season is this, and I'm going to include it in this season as well, because I think it actually does a good thing for the origin, like where you started. Can you tell me the first time you can remember monetizing mental capital? Like go way back. Think lemonade stand or you
Oh
know
man.
fridge in your
Well,
bedroom selling soda to your
I mean, if
siblings.
we're really going back, I did so many things as an entrepreneur, right? This is like pre-Amazon times where, e-cigarettes were around and we were a couple of kids growing up in Brooklyn, New York, actually. That's where I grew up. I don't live there right now, but we started like an e-cig brand when it was starting to become popular. And we just started like packing up duffel bags and walking to delis and just, selling e-cigarettes. I even had like they're called BDs. They were like pre-rolled for people to roll their own, you know, cigarettes at the time.
Interesting.
Right. And then so we would just have like this duffel bag of all this like smoking related products and just like do talk to talk, face to face negotiation on the spot. And most of the time we would even like pretend to like leave the store when they didn't want it. And they're like, okay, let's do consignment. Let's do that. So at the end of that round, we did it for like a year. It was kind of cool to just drive around your neighborhood and see your sticker on all these delis selling your product.
That's
That
awesome.
failed. That was one of many things that failed. We also had a cart selling gyros in
Hmm.
Manhattan. This is when I was like in early years of college. And we could only afford to have that cart for like a week because you had to have someone 24/7 with like the special permit. And we wanted to convert it into a crepe stand, but we didn't have enough time to do the renovation. So we just immediately started getting in the halal business, like the gyros. So, that was kind of weird and another experience, under the belt. So I have many stories like that, but I think the key to monetizing that mental capital, it's something that is deep within you because you have these experiences and a lot of them are failures, but they each teach you something and then you're just applying that lesson to the next one, becoming more and more successful. So that's why I'm able to do all those things that I said earlier. The reason why I'm able to do those things is not because I'm a genius. It's because I have a belt full of failures.
Wow. I love that. A belt full of failures definitely lines up with my entrepreneurial experience. I too have been through the ringer many times. And it's been a journey. It definitely has been something to learn over time and grow and change 100%. So digging into the nuggets here, as you consider your journey in monetizing these mental nuggets. When you were a seller, did you have a moment in that journey where you came across something that you were like, holy crap, this could be repeatable? And you called up an Amazon buddy and you're like, give me this. And it worked. And you were like, oh my gosh, that's a SaaS product, or that's a, whatever else. Did you come across any opportunities like that?
Yeah, early on, I think the main thing was we used to sell generic product, and that was starting on eBay, then moving into Amazon. And then there was that aha moment when I called my partner and I said, you know what, man, the products that we're selling, we can just slap a logo on it and call it our brand. And then we can ask for any price that we want. And we are able to play the long game here, instead of just like this one off, generic, random, whatever comes our way type of deal. And
Interesting.
so we did that and it worked. And in those days, it was really just about sending Google traffic to your listing. Something happens. We can't, attribution wasn't a thing. So you don't really know what happens after you've sent it into Amazon, but you just see your sales going up. So you're just kind of guesstimating that there's conversion and rank
Yeah.
is happening and
Yeah.
you're growing the business. That was the model at that time, but that was that big aha moment. I think the game has changed quite a bit now where everything's far more granular. I think without tools, technology, and experience, it's nearly impossible to even begin competing on the Amazon platform today.
Interesting. So imagining that you stepped into a coffee shop with a friend of yours and he either says, yeah, I've got this Amazon brand and it's doing like 20 grand a month, or maybe he's even like, I just barely listed this product, one of those two categories. So he's not real big. Looking at that, what are some of the things that you would say, well, have you tried this, or have you considered that, or when I've been in those situations with my friends, I have had moments where I was like, oh, you are in this spot in your journey, which is like back at the very beginning of what I was doing. You may want to consider this, 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 and this. And that's, just trying to provide value for the conversation. What would you tell him?
Well, I would, in order for me to give an accurate assessment, I would say, hey, pull out your phone and show me this listing. Like that's first step. Like what are people actually looking at when they're looking at something? And then I can almost on the spot immediately provide just like front facing content audit right there, right? Do you have all the character counts filled out? Are you optimizing for your keywords and for SEO?
So when
Do
you
you
say,
have,
do you have all your character counts filled out, you mean like the limits on the bullet points, the limits on the
yeah,
description, the limits on all of those pieces, using the full amount of content possible in every category?
maxing out your real estate? Why not? Right? I see people who are like,
Interesting.
they have like the short title, 2 images, and then like no A plus content, or like a A plus content, just filling out the basic modules. Like, have you seen that reusing the stuff that they put in the infographic section?
Oh yeah.
Or it's like, no, you want diversity. You want like all those fields are there for a reason, and Amazon takes it into consideration, especially now with this whole Rufus thing.
Oh
Probably
yeah.
if we have time, we'll get into that later, but that's changing the game right now. But more importantly, like Amazon is able to read the images. Definitely, they're looking at A plus content. They're looking at your backend. That's another thing. Is like you have real estate in the backend that's not even visible. You want to fill all of that out as much as possible. Sit there, be bored for 2 hours, and fill out every detail on the backend. All of this like specifications and like, does it fit into this category? Is it for this gender? Is it for this hair type? Is it for this whatever? Put as much information as you possibly can, because that's all going to come into play when Rufus is out there just scouring the internet, looking at all these different values and then providing somebody a recommendation for what they should buy.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. I mean, for reals, right? If you recognize that those pieces of information are entering a large language model, like that's the whole point of the large language model, is he who has the most data backing up that, what he's talking about is what you want, is the one who wins.
Yeah.
So,
Back in the day, people were designing products for a shelf. It's a certain way to do it. Then we started designing product pages, which are for people scrolling and comparing. And now we're designing product listings for people, but also for robots who are there doing the search for you. So
crazy
it's
thing
changing.
oh man, that's like when you consider the difference between making a product listing for a robot and a human, like when you said like fill out every single piece of real estate. So one of the things that's interesting about me is right now my wife and I are considering some new investments. My wife and I are considering some new investments, and one of the investments we're considering is purchasing an Amazon business. And we've seen a couple for sale, and this has been something that we're curious about, and I think it actually fits her personality pretty well. I think she would do well in that realm of the data, and she was a math teacher for many years, so very methodical, lots to go there. I'm like all over the place, so I could definitely come up with new product ideas, but I'm not as worried about that. So long and the short of it is I'm a fairly solid novice when it comes to some of these basic tactics. And so when you mentioned, because my experience is all in automation and tech and building out those different sites and marketing, I'm not in the listings. When you said fill out every single thing, I was like, there's no way a human's gonna like read all of that, and they're probably gonna feel overwhelmed. So I'm curious, when you do use every ounce of real estate, do you do something with the text to make it so that it's human readable? And because I get it with the bot, like as much information as possible if the bot's reading the listing. But for the human who's reading the listing, how do you make those bullet points ring true for both people, both
That's a good
entities?
question. That's a good question. Right. I think the back end part is definitely like no one's going to be reading that, but you'll see it especially on mobile search. Like for example, I sell a shampoo and it'll be like these bold, kind of like captioned hypoallergenic, organic, right? And that's not anything that you're seeing in the front end of the listing. That is back end being advertised by Amazon to the people. But I would say the way that we're doing optimizations is we start with a template and we start with a brainstorming session. What are the unique selling points? Okay, we know what they are. Now let's find all the keywords which are relevant to that. Here's the list.
Interesting.
Then let's get to writing. And so we're making sure that we're using all of those selling points, all of those keywords, and we're just writing out stuff for people. But we already have the premise of the listing, which is selling points, keywords. Those are the things that you really need and what the robot really needs to know. Everything else is just making it legible. I will say that bullet points are not as important as people make them seem. Title is super important. Infographics are super important. The next thing is A+ content. Medium important.
Okay. So titles, infographics,
Yeah.
A+ content.
Yeah.
What about
and
the main image? Is the main image still like
main image is pretty
it's gotta be
important.
attractive, right? Like it can't be, something trashy.
Definitely. But there's a limitation to how much you can do. There's all kinds of things I'm seeing, especially on LinkedIn. People love to share, like conversion rate optimization for the hero image. And there's all this tricky stuff that you can do where it's like a piece of color that's like kind of connected to the hero. So Amazon doesn't really detect that it's like something floating text. It's risky, so like you can try to play around with that. But I mean, I think if you're not getting caught, that's fine. You can try to play with different things. For the most part, we do test a couple different hero images, but once we know which one is working after a couple split tests, we pretty much stick to that for at least a year.
And who do you use for split testing? For like split testing your image, do you actually leave it on for a week, take it off for a week? Like, what do you do? What do you do that way?
We're using manage your experiments within the Amazon Seller Central platform.
Okay, gotcha. Have you ever used like a PickFu or one of those others that, from that standpoint?
Those are good too. I think you get a result much faster, but it's not data from your audience. Right?
Interesting.
That's the only caveat.
We have an internal app if you're using the SellerLabs platform, go check this out. It's in a thing we call the lab. We actually have that platform inside SellerLabs where you can send that out, and there's like a free coupon and stuff. So that is I love that you're talking about images, because there's an option. I think it's like 50 credits or something like that, where you can get feedback on images for different products.
For launching, I think expediting the launch, I think that's a great strategy. I think once you're already kind of in there and things are rolling, then A/B testing because you have the data and you have the volume. But in the beginning, yeah, if you're just like, I don't know, what should I start with, right? Then yeah, those options are great.
Interesting. So as you, and I love the order you put those in. So the title, and I think we could spend like the entire rest of our episode, digging in. The first nugget I loved that I think I'm calling it a nugget. I'm calling it a piece of mental capital that I think you've probably monetized many times is be bored for 2 hours. Like be bored for 2 hours and fill out every single thing you can about that product. Because although a human may not read every single one of those fields, Rufus is, and so is Amazon.
That's right. That's exactly it.
I love it. And then I think your comment around, how to optimize that content so that it's both human readable, but also bot readable. And the nugget you gave about it would be foolish to think that they are not OCRing. And for those who don't know, OCR means that's just the ability to scan text out of an image.
Right.
Very common now. It's been very common for many years to be able to scan text out of an image. We would be foolish to think that Amazon is not using OCR technology to pull out, if you've got an infographic in your images, every last bit of that text.
That's right.
I would be willing to bet. So one of the things I've seen with OCR that's like, for me, like OCR, like I've got my phone, I open up Google Lens and I take a picture of a business card and then it pops up and says, do you want to add this to your contacts? It does a decent job at that. But one of the things that I've noticed is if I take a picture of, like, let's say a flyer or an infographic, it doesn't often do a good job of detecting the H1s. Like this is prime content. If I'm just using Google Lens, right? It'll read the text, but it can't say like, oh, that's a bolded versus italicized. Like it's just the text. I think we might be foolish to consider that they don't have technology that isn't good enough to recognize H1s in infographics. What do you think?
That's a good point. I mean, when you say H1s, you're really just talking about the emphasis of the.
Yes. Do they have? I mean, that's funny. I'm like answering my own question as I say it. I'm curious as to your answer. Do they have technology that they can take that image and say programmatically, without a human being involved, what are the most emphasized keywords on this image?
Yeah.
I'm curious, what would be your answer to that? Do you think they have tech that can do that?
I think they have tech that can do that and many other things, like even detecting inappropriate content within a video that's trying to get approved. And I think that's even more advanced because it's like motion.
Yeah.
I think they do, but the way that they're using it is like they're just scanning everything and piling it into one LLM. That's it. And I think is just going into the data feed. I don't know if they care about emphasis. I think their A9 algorithm as a whole definitely has different weights in different sections. And for advanced sellers, I start going into A9 algorithm theories and everything. I think like when you're starting out, that stuff is important, but as long as you're checking the boxes on all these basics that we were talking about, you're fine. You don't have to get that granular. But to answer your question, I think they're not paying that much attention to it necessarily. I think the big emphasis is definitely like the front of the title. If we're going to talk about emphasis, like I think that's kind of how you tell Amazon, and that's not necessarily because Amazon cares that it's at the front of the title. It's because that's where humans care more, and human action informs Amazon's decisions.
The title doesn't. It's what's interesting to me is how much the title has become a summarization of the product listing.
Totally.
I remember looking at a product and I was just so frustrated that there was so much to scroll through. And I found myself doing that. I'll look at the title, and if the title doesn't have most of what I'm looking for, next product.
That's it. Who has time, right? To scroll through, like who's looking at, that's what I'm saying, 8 bullet points. Who's reading bullet points? I don't know. I don't read bullet points anymore.
Bullet points, but only when I'm like down to I've already made a decision that I'm going to buy this thing. I'm just checking to make sure that it doesn't do, or that it does do X, Y, or Z.
There you
That was a
go.
lower priority thing on my list. So it had better be in that list of bullets for the thing that I'm hoping for, right? Whatever it is. Like I bought lots of different stuff that's been like that, where I like a headset or Bluetooth headphones, or back scratcher, or whatever it is. Like there's some experience that I'm like, I really do not want this thing to break when I'm laying down, or I really don't, there's some sort of scenario that I'm looking for, and I'm hoping that those bullets address it. And sometimes I go down that deeply and I'm like, this is just not, deal breaker. And I'm back to doing title search and title scanning.
Speaking of that, like, what's a great thing to do is like every 2 months, go into your negative reviews, pull out the stuff that people are complaining about and address it in your bullet points. Because if people are doing the same thing that you're doing, where they're going into the bullet points to just make sure they're not going to get unhappy or like to reinforce the decision. So all that stuff, bullet points.
Oh, holy shiz. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, I totally go look it depends on the size of the purchase, right? The higher the price tag, the more investigation I'm doing before I hit that buy button, right?
Yeah.
So, anything, anything more than, a burger, or even, you can kind of like, is this a burger? Is this I'm trying to think of something that I buy often that's $100. There isn't that much. I mean, I'm taking my family out for dinner these days is almost $100. So, but when you kind of get into that, like, is this a week's worth of groceries? Is that what I'm buying? Or am I buying a burger? Or am I buying, what's the comparable? And I'm curious to hear your take on the emphasis for the different price points. So obviously fill out everything you can, but I think it becomes more important at certain price points. So where do you think that price point is where it's like, you had better have every freaking, like that's where like those negative reviews are critical, because it's more of a considered purchase. Where's that threshold?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that regardless of what information needs to be, that you should treat it the same way. But I will say that, of course, like you, many people who are going higher in price are doing deeper research, even going outside of Amazon to look at social media and website. So you want to have as much information, not just on your product detail page at that point, especially if you're like an expensive, we're selling machines of, whatever, $300 machines, right? People are going everywhere looking for the best price. They're looking for all the information, making sure that it's not going to do the things that they don't want it to do. And of course, then on top of it, comparing to other similar products. What I will say is like price is a very interesting topic because people are comparing price within a certain price bracket, even if it's similar types of products. So what I mean by that is you can be the cheapest or the most expensive for that product within a bracket, and then you can just charge a couple of extra dollars and now you become the cheapest premium version of that product. So it's very interesting how there's like a psychological jump that happens that you can charge more for something and actually get more sales because you have psychologically jumped into another
You jumped into
tier.
the category of, that's a good hack.
Yeah.
So identifying the bracket you're in,
right,
across those other pieces. And then you mentioned those negative reviews. My brain went immediately to like, okay, well, let's go find the biggest competing, like what's my biggest keyword? Who's the other listing that's right there next to mine?
Yeah.
And go into his negative keywords, like grab his comments right out of his and go the other direction as well and get mine, and then address those in my bullet points and you said every 6 months?
Every 6 months, 12 months, depending on, the volume, but
The volume.
you'll be surprised. Like negative reviews on Amazon are a gold mine for information. The reason why is because people are sharing pain points. Pain points are where solutions come from. Solutions are what make you money. So negative reviews from yourself and your competitors are brilliant, even from the product research and development side, right? You're just like immediately already aware of things that people are just dealing with other competitors.
Thank you for complaining about your life. We appreciate it.
We appreciate it. We will design a product just for you.
That's going to be the name of the episode right there. Thank you for complaining about your products. The nuggets you can find in negative reviews. I love it. This has been very, very valuable. I see lots of different nuggets that you've freely shared with the audience here. The last question that I like to ask is any tips, tricks, hacks, or books that you've come across in the last year that have helped you upscale your ability to monetize your mental capital, build your business, or find more nuggets?
You know, I think the most valuable thing that I did this year, and this might not be for every person, but I think many entrepreneurs can probably get some green lights popping once they hear this. The most impactful thing I've done this year was start a podcast. And I'll tell you why. Because my podcast, people are asking me, why are you spending so much time doing that? It's been a fractionalized mentorship for me. What I mean by that is,
Fractionalized mentorship.
that's right. Yeah. And what I mean by that is I'm inviting CEOs. My podcast is called the Agency Operators Podcast. So I'm speaking with other agency operators like myself across all different niches and subcategories within e-commerce, right? Even people who are doing app development, doesn't have to be e-commerce, but anybody who's a founder, who's running a team, knows my pain, knows the struggle, right? And we can talk on that kind of wavelength. And that has been
Interesting.
huge for me because I've been listening to so many different stories and perspectives from other founders and ways that they're doing it. There's so many ways to do it. And everybody has their, like you're saying, I like to call it the same. It's a negative goal that you walk away with where you're just saying, wow, everything that you've said made so much sense. I'm going to start kind of changing my perspective. And they just, it's a drop in the bucket. And after a couple episodes, we're at like 30 something right now. So it's only been a few months, but I've already found myself so confident, so much more aware in these ways, motivated and just like kind of in the world, in the network much more, right? Otherwise, I'm just like an entrepreneur within my own bubble. But here you're kind of forced to get out and get out of your shell and get out of your own way, essentially. So I feel
love
like
it.
that is an extremely powerful tool that many people have access to. I mean, all you need is a basic mic, a basic video
Yeah,
camera, so you're
you
not
don't
producing
need a
terrible
Yeti
quality.
microphone, but a Yeti microphone's a great
No.
place to start, right? Yeah. So how much was yours?
Yeah. $100. And I
Yeah,
take it with
same
me
here.
everywhere. This is a
$100.
$100 microphone.
Yep.
Yeah. That's all you need. I got like my webcam, whatever, $70 Logitech or whatever I got.
Yep.
And then you just need a basic setup, a little light. It's like, what is it? $40. You can get started for like $100
Yep.
or $150, and you can have a decent setup.
You could get by without the camera. Like you really could just use whatever's in your laptop. Like it's not going to be amazing, but you could, because one of the things that I love this. This is a great hack. I'm just gonna put some nuggets out there. Most of my businesses grow based on relationships that I make, and most of those relationships that I make have started with a podcast. Like some of the best relationships I've ever had. And it's just a fantastic opportunity to be in a place where there's no sales, there's no pitching. It's just exchanging information, just having a good conversation. And it's been unreal valuable. The hack I would give for people who are considering starting a podcast: do not worry that no one's going to listen to it, because you don't care about who's going to listen to it. What you care about is the relationships you make with the guests. Now, you do need to come up with a topic that people want to talk about and a topic that people would be willing to listen to. Like it has to be plausible, or the guest is going to be like, I'm not getting on that podcast. That sounds weird. Right. So you've got to be that far, but that's as far as you need to go.
That's it. Yeah. And I would also just say, like, I did it the laziest way, or so I thought the laziest way, but it actually became super nice for anybody who comes on. What I mean by that is I thought, okay, I'm not going to make anybody do these like preparations and do all this like fancy, like, make a slideshow of 30 slides before this, making people spend all this time, I'd really and the reason why is because I don't care about that stuff. I just want to talk to you, I just want it to come out. And many times I'll just say, hey, pick a topic you like. And then we just have a name for it. We attract people because of that name. It is going to be talked about on the show, but it's really like a deep dive about who are you? Why did you become what you are? And okay, let's talk about the subject. And then that subject branches off into a million other things too, which just we're following our interests and our excitement. Yep. And that is electric. That is magnifying.
Yep.
And it's magnetic, I mean, and that's kind of like the point of all of it. And then hopefully somebody will listen. We'll cut it up into shorts and post it on, whatever platform. And over time, you know, it's always there, it's compounding, and those relationships are really the price. And
I love it.
that's what it is for me. That's my hack. You know, it's fractionalized mentorship through podcasting.
I love it. Great nuggets today. Thank you so much for your time, Pasha. I appreciate it. We're going to end it there. And that's it for monetizing your mental capital.
Thanks, Will.